Pleasant morning all. Shall we all stand as we commence in prayer, please? Let's pray. Our Father and God, this morning we are indeed thankful for your mercies towards us. We thank you, Father, for having brought us in this place. We thank you, God, that even as we commence this session, Lord, that your Spirit will just guide and protect us. That whatever we say and we do here, or discussions, Lord, will be guided by you. And that, Father, in the name of Jesus, that even as we actively engage ourselves, that you will lead us, direct us, Lord, that as we discuss, Father, it shall be for the good of this sector and the country as a whole. We pray, God, that your Spirit would just take divine control. Let everything be done decently and in order. And in the end, we shall be mindful to give you the praise, the glory, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Saint-Jean. And so God blessed us with a very beautiful droop. I learned one of those days that it's not a knot, but a droop. So he has blessed us with this beautiful creation that we need in Dominica to platform as part of our development process. And so Coconuts is in celebration today, and it comes out of September 2nd, designated as World Coconut Day. It is important enough for this world to stop and celebrate it. So in Dominica, we are doing the same. And so by way of welcome, I'm the chair for today. I'd like to, of course, welcome our moderator, Mrs. Smith, our government press secretary. She works out of the OPM. TO Extension. Let me say it in full. Technical Officer, Agricultural Education, Youth and Extension Services. To our own Technical Officer for Programs and Services, not projects again. We have taken the term projects out of the window, so we're looking at complete projects. We have Mr. Maffan Walter and staff from the Ministry of Trade. We have Mr. Saint-Jean, of course, who lead us in prayer, Dr. Robin, Shanita John from the ITC, International Trade Center. We have Mrs. Dominic from ICA, with Dr. Robin. We have, of course, the lecturer at the State College, Mr. Alexander, and staff from the State College. We have Miss Loader, a past employee of the Ministry of Agriculture, but is doing wonderful things in the country. We have members of the NSPC, which is the National Stakeholder Platform for Coconuts. And again, it's important to have a group of people designated just for working on coconuts. We have staff of the ministry, extension staff, team leaders as well. We have staff of CADI, along with one of our panelists. And of course, we have the media. We have, and if I missed anybody else, I'm sorry about that. And we have the media, importantly, so to showcase, to present all our information to the general public. We welcome you to our activity, and Kian I have no secrets. Kian just whispered to me, of course, Mrs. or Dr. Of course, Dr. Ansel, Dr. we can have a light moment. Dr. Paquette, of course, from Musk. I will not lose an important brand name. So, Mr. Stevenson, thank you very much. So let us all feel welcome in this place, and let us discuss, of course, this important creation, coconuts. Feel welcome. Discuss as much as we can, because your ideas, your suggestions, your reflections will be important to our pathway for coconut and our roadmap for coconuts. So be part of the process. Do not be bashful, do not be shy. Dominicans never die. So I will also introduce our moderator, Mrs. Smith, Dion, from the National Press Secretary. And you would have seen her and hear her, especially during our press conferences, the government's press conferences. So I believe she will certainly pay good homage to this panel today. And she will come on now to start the process and, of course, introduce our panelists. Thank you a lot, Mrs. Smith.
Good morning, everyone. It's not often that I get to say protocol already established, but I'll invoke that privilege this morning and go with that. So thank you for joining us for this coconut panel discussion on the topic, the prospects and outlook for the revitalization of the coconut industry in Dominica. Today's panel discussion is an initiative of the National Stakeholders Platform, and I hope I'm getting that right, Mr. Ansam, for coconut in collaboration with the International Trade Center under Phase 2 of the EU-funded Alliances for Coconut Industry Development in the Caribbean. As you heard, World Coconut Day was observed on Saturday, September 2nd, 2023, under the theme Sustaining the Coconut Sector for the Present and the Future Generations. But given the importance of initiatives by local authorities within the agriculture sector to expand the coconut industry in Dominica, this panel discussion remains timely today. So our distinguished panelists will tell us much more about these efforts and the potential benefits of expanding the industry. So today on our panel, we have Mr. Dorian Etienne, Mr. Jeffrey Bruni, Ms. Kamisha Dominic, Mr. Lloyd Pascal, and Mr. Ryan Anselm. So we will begin first with Mr. Dorian Etienne, and I'll tell you a little bit about him. He's a CADI representative and agribusiness specialist. Mr. Etienne is the CADI representative, agribusiness specialist. He has been with the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute from October 1988, where he has functioned firstly as a plant pathology agronomy technician, and thereafter in different capacities across a range of agriculture-related disciplines. His professional and academic training include a BSc in Agribusiness and Management from the University of the West Indies, a master's degree in Project Management from DeVry University, a postgraduate diploma in Rural Tourism from Colegio de Postgraduados in Mexico, and a certificate in Sustainable Farm Management and Agribusiness from the Galilee International Management Institute. Other training and experience include many years of laboratory and field work in pest disease management, crop production and productivity, biotechnology, and post-harvest. Mr. Etienne has co-authored the Caribbean Pineapple Production and Post-Harvest Manual, 2011, a research paper evaluation of soil substitutes and protected structure covering material on the performance of tomatoes under a protected agriculture system, published in 2013, and the manual Small Scale Cassava Production in Dominica, 2021. I think it might be more efficient to give you the biographies of all our speakers, and then they can proceed. Our next speaker is Mr. Jeffrey Bruni. Mr. Jeffrey Bruni is a farmer of Tebow. He's engaged in coconut production. He also cultivates fruits and vegetables for export, including soursop, guavas, dragon fruit, vanilla, which he tells me he's in pre-production for this. Soon he will begin export, plantains, and vanilla, and tomatoes. Currently, he has approximately 500 coconut trees established, 99% of which are dwarf coconut trees. He has embarked on the bottling of coconut water for sale and is looking to expand coconut production for export. Miss Kamisha Dominic, she operates L'Huile Dominique, and that means oil in Dominica, Dominica oil. She produces 2 grades of coconut oil, virgin and extra virgin cold pressed coconut oil. She also produces extra virgin cold pressed moringa seed oil. Her first production for sale started in 2019, 2 years after Hurricane Maria, a time when coconuts were very scarce, but the demand was very high. This scarcity and high price for coconuts forced Miss Dominic to travel to St. Lucia to purchase dry coconuts so that she could continue supplying the growing clientele, mostly friends who were excited about the unique taste and rich coconut flavor of L'Huile Dominique coconut oil. Although she's employed in an 8-to-4 job, she finds the time to keep the fire burning for her newfound passion in agro-processing and is here today to present the agro-processor's perspective. Mr. Lloyd Pascal is a quality management and business development specialist who works closely with entrepreneurs, business executives, researchers, academia, and governments to grow products, services, and markets for industry partners in the agribusiness, manufacturing, and services sector. Mr. Pascal has spent more than 2 decades working in post-harvest research, extension services, marketing and development activities for national and regional organizations such as the Dominica Banana Marketing Corporation, DBMC, the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, CARDI, the OECS, the Competitive Business Unit, CBU, and the Dominica Export-Import Agency, DEXIA, where he currently serves as head of the Export Promotion and Development Department. Mr. Pascal is well known among the farming community and MSMEs and has been a strong advocate for quality management systems that ensure compliance with market entry requirements locally, regionally, and internationally. His outstanding work in these sectors have earned him great respect among his peers. He holds an MBA with a strong focus on total quality management from the University of Leicester and is a trained quality systems auditor. He will speak on trade and export aspects of the coconut sector as well as value-added products. And our final panelist is Mr. Ryan Ansom. He is currently employed with the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy as a technical officer with responsibility for programming and services to include technical cooperation, and that was from 2017 to now. Previously, Mr. Ansom held the position of Head Plant Protection and Quarantine Unit Officer. He also serves as the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO National Correspondent and is currently the chair of the National Stakeholders Platform for Coconut in Dominica. He holds a diploma in agriculture from the Clifton Dupini Community College. He then went on to pursue studies in Cuba, where he obtained a BSc as an agricultural engineer. His passion and love for agricultural health, food safety, and food systems caused him to pursue an MSc at the Michigan State University College of Food Law, East Lansing, Michigan, where he obtained a Master of Jurisprudence in Global Food Law. That's pretty impressive, Ryan. Ryan is a lover of the environment and sustainable agriculture. He considers himself as a food system and value chain development specialist, and he will speak on the opportunities that abound within the sector and the outlook for the coconut industry in Dominica. So we begin with Mr. Dorian Etienne, who will speak on challenges and pest diseases affecting the coconuts, and he will also offer a regional perspective on coconut production. Mr. Etienne.
Good morning, all. As the moderator rightly said, protocol has been established, so I will go right into the presentation that I'm expected to speak on. I will first speak to the regional perspective. Regional perspective. The coconut global value chain is characterized by a rapidly growing demand in global demands and a stagnant supply base. Market demand is rising for traditional and non-traditional coconut products across the free chain strands. And these strands are namely the coconut food chain, the coconut sports drink chain, and the coconut chemicals chain. Growth in the coconut food chain is driven by alternative dairy food and beverage markets, with demand for coconut milk spearheading that growth. Although the traditional products in the coconut food chain, which is the refined, bleached, and deodorized coconut oil, has rebuilt its health profile in the edible oils market, it has yet to recover from the onslaught that was brought about in the 70s and 80s, where it lost sizable market share to other major vegetable competitors. However, demand for virgin coconut oil, which came on the scene in the early 2000s, it has grown over the years. That demand has grown over the years. In the coconut chemical chain, the traditional export product is coconut oil, which is used as a base in the manufacturing of coconuts, of oleochemicals. Consumer preference for naturalness in personal care and cosmetic markets has expanded the demand for these oil-based chemicals. In the coconut sports drink chain, coconut water has been experiencing remarkable growth. Since the early 2000s, breakthroughs in processing technology and consumer awareness about the health benefits of coconut water have expanded that market tremendously and has moved to locations where the consumption of coconut water has not been a traditional thing. Now, besides these free kernel-based chains, coconut byproducts, like the husk, the coconut shells, the husk, they have found niche markets in the activated carbon and coconut coir industries. The coconut value chain in the Caribbean, it mirrors what is happening globally. Between 2008 and 2014, regional trade of coconuts and coconut products, it grew by approximately 230%. And that is despite a declining trend in the trade of other commodities within the region. Now, whereas the demand for the global and regional levels is set to steadily grow over the medium to long term, there are some constraints to the growth of the industry. Now, following the decline of the copra oil industry in the 1980s, there had been little incentive for value chain actors to invest in coconuts. But that was until the market resurgence in the early 2000s. The resurgent industry has had to struggle with declining raw material supplies due to a stagnant coconut supply and aging and unproductive plantings. To initiate that revitalization of the regional coconut industry, actions to increase farmer productivity, income diversification, integration into formal markets, and value chain competitiveness have been initiated through projects like the EU-funded Project Alliances for Coconut Industry Development and Expansion and Enhanced Support for the Caribbean. And that project has been ongoing in 8 Caribbean countries. This is just one of the initiatives and actions across the region. There are other government-supported actions that have tried to address these issues. Consolidation and scale-up of these and other interventions, it will allow private and public stakeholders at the national and regional levels to take advantage of the windows of opportunities created by the growing market trends. Now, there are challenges that have been experienced to grow the regional coconut industry. And some of these, as I mentioned earlier, with the aged plantings, we also have issues of high cost of inputs, insufficient planting material, we have pests and diseases, climate change, we also have insufficient capital investment for production and processing. and we cannot forget Prader larceny, which is all of these are issues that are affecting the industry. Some of the diseases which I have been asked to speak to, I won't go into detail of those diseases, but I'll mention some of them. We are very familiar with the red palm mite, we have the scales, we have the bud mites, which are very prevalent in Dominica and in most of the Caribbean countries. But there are also emerging threats from new introductions of diseases. Though not yet in the Caribbean, they pose some real challenges to the region. There are also a lot of pests too that we need to speak to, we need to address, and very often when one feels that they have gotten some sufficient control of a pest or disease, another is knocking at the door. And those are exacerbated by climate change. Just if we think of the winds, the strong winds, they have the potential to blow in pests and diseases that did not exist in our country before. And these are real issues that the region have to battle with. But how do we manage those pests and diseases? Well, there are different strategies we can use. We have used avoidance, that is choosing varieties for specific locations that are known to perform in probably optimal or less than optimal conditions in those areas. We have exclusion, looking at seed certification and plant quarantine. We have using resistant or tolerant varieties. Speaking to coconuts, and I speak to the Dominica situation, since the heydays of the coconut industry, the varieties that have been introduced have really been what we still have today. The Malayans, the yellow, the green, the browns, and the talls. And they've been there for some time now. Of course, there have been some hybridization, not by design, but it happens in nature. But still, documentation of these have not been able to, we've not done sufficient documentation to even let us know what those hybrids are and how they're performing out in nature. We're looking at eradication, removing some disease plants or even varieties that are non-performers. And another strategy is protecting what you already have. Now, I spoke earlier to the climate change. And over the years, there have been a number of climate-related events that have impacted the coconut industry across the region. We don't have to go very far. 2017, Hurricane Maria almost brought our coconut sector to its knees by destroying most of the plants that have been growing on the island. Again, interestingly too, these things teach us some lessons, because we have observed that certain varieties are able to stand up to the winds, while other varieties are decimated. So farmers who have dwarf varieties will tell you that during Maria, most of those dwarfs toppled. The talls were able to stand up to the wind, although Maria was an extreme event. So while some of the plants remain standing, however, the shock event eventually killed them out. But it showed that a variety was able to stand up better to those winds. And while we speak to winds, we also have to think of the temperatures. We know we're experiencing increased prolonged temperatures, and research has shown that increased temperatures does have an impact on yield and productivity. Our region have not yet generated data to support that. However, the trend globally has been reduction in yield based on the changing temperatures. And so we can expect the same happening in our region. And so how do we best deal with pests and diseases? Well, the region is moving towards climate smart practices to address the problems in agriculture generally. And disease management is just one of those components. So we're looking at climate smart practices in crop management, climate smart practices in soil management. We're looking at agroforestry and an integrated food energy system. All of these aimed at mitigating the effects of climate change and other factors on the coconut industry. So the regional perspective of the coconut industry looks promising. It looks promising, but what is required is a collaborative effort of all the stakeholders, private and public stakeholders. Policy directives set by, of course, those in governance, and as we are experiencing now, what we are seeing in Dominica, and is replicated across the region, is that regional governments have come to realize that the coconut industry can be a major player in both providing food for consumption, domestic consumption, food and other products for trade. And as we look at the banner of the Ministry of Agriculture, we see coconuts as one of those commodities. A couple of years ago, it would not be there. There would be other crops other than coconuts. So that's an indication that the reality has set in that coconuts has that promise to really contribute to the efforts of the policy of the drivers of the sector to contribute significantly to GDP and food security. Thank you.
Thanks to Mr. Etienne for his summary of some of the challenges facing the coconut sector in the region, especially as relates to the presence of pests and diseases, and certainly some of the ways we can begin to consider to address these challenges, including his late reference to collaboration and appropriate policy direction from the authorities. So thank you so much, Mr. Etienne, for your intervention. Our next speaker is from the private sector. He's a farmer, processor, Mr. Jeffrey Bruni, and he will speak on the perspective of the farmer, the perspective of the producer. Tell us a little bit about his experience in the coconut sector. Mr. Bruni.
Good morning. So, like we said earlier, with protocol already established, I just want to share my experience with you all as a coconut farmer, my challenges, the opportunities I see, and yeah, my encouragement, pretty much. So I started coconut production 2 years before Maria. My intention at the time was just to do, a couple hundred trees total. But after Maria, I realized there's an opportunity. So before Maria, I was in like 100 and something trees. And after Maria to now, I have close to 600 trees planted. I have about 400 trees in production now. So let me just go right to the challenges. Now let me backtrack a little bit. I have more than 30 years experience in commercial agriculture, but I want to stick to the coconut part of it, and my experience and the opportunities that I see from a farmer's perspective, and the challenges that we can address, the challenges that you can expect, and what we can address. So my biggest challenge then, when I started, was to find coconut plants, good quality plants. That was my biggest challenge. It is still a big challenge today, not for me, because I have thousands and thousands of plants now. I even sell plants. But at the time, it was a huge challenge to find plants. Went around the country, to look for some good trees to see if I can get a few dry nuts underneath them, And I did that pretty much all around the country, and it was a task to find, some good dwarf dry nuts so that I could make plants out of. My biggest challenge today is labor. And I think we know, those of us in the industry, we know the kind of challenge we have with labor in the industry. It just people, I don't know if I should say people don't want to work. I don't know what it is. I thought I knew, but I don't know. So for me to make my farm work the way I want it to work, I have to work a minimum of 12 hours a day. That shouldn't be, but that's the reality. I'm not the kind of farmer that just want to plant a few trees. I want to have a comfortable life. So I need to put in those hours to make up for the labor shortage and to get the kind of production that I want. So it is still a big challenge, labor, and I know there are a few things going on. I've heard from the PS that there are a few things in play now for fixing the labor problem. Currently, I have 3 Cuban workers, 2 Santo Domingo, a few Haitians, and 1 Dominican. A single mother. And she's my best worker. But it's a challenge finding Dominican workers that want to work. I mean, everybody wants to get money, but work. So it's a challenge. It's still my big challenge. I would say it's my challenge number 1, 2, and 3. And if we can solve that, I think we can go a long way, not just in coconuts, but in the industry. So if you plan to go into establishing a nice big plot of coconuts, you have to take that into consideration. Labor. So so my big challenge was at the time plants. I think we are solving the plant problem now, I think, right? The other people will speak about that, but that's what I am feeling and hearing and everything like that. But labor is still the big challenge. Now, I want to speak a bit more of the opportunities. I think that is where we really need to spend some time on the opportunities of coconut, not just in Dominica, but in the region, especially in the region. My family is in Europe, so I travel 3-4 times a year, and every time I take a trip, I pass through a couple islands just to see what's going on. Antigua, Guadeloupe, Martinique, I just, take a few days just to check out what's going on with not just coconuts, but everything else, vanilla, everything. And the coconut, I cannot imagine an amount of coconut, a plot that a farmer can plant in Dominica now for it to be too much. I cannot imagine I cannot imagine the possibility of planting too much coconut now. 500 acres, 1,000, there's no amount of coconut that one can plant now. And that's from my perspective, not just here in Dominica, but traveling the region with people asking me, messaging, emailing me, Facebooking me, asking me for example, a coconut of jelly, a container of jelly a month. One request from Tortola. People want, I'm talking about those volumes. So the demand for coconut is insane, just in our region. Antigua, Anguilla, Tortola, Guadeloupe, Martinique. It's just insane. A jelly in Antigua now is $13. A jelly, not a bottled just $13 right now on the streets of Antigua. So it's the opportunities out there for jelly and dry coconut. I'm getting calls all the time. I do some, whenever I have a really nice project going on, I do a nice Facebook video, I send it out, and I get calls from around the world, and coconut is just one of them that you just cannot plant, and I cannot overemphasize that. Like right now, I am looking for 100 acres to play my role. That's just to play my role. 100 acres of coconut. So right now I have a little over 500 trees planted. I am cultivating 16 acres of coconut and other things, intercropping and so on. So I have some vanilla stuff going on and so on. So, but yeah. But what I have cultivated now is it's nothing compared to what I want to do. And I can say another challenge also is finding land. It is and it is not. I don't want to buy land on the on the private sector too. Yeah, sure. Yes. Yes and no. I mean, my road can be a lot better. I can get there for now. All right? So, but when I planted my coconuts, I didn't have road. So I'm not sure the purpose of the question in terms of do I need the road? Yeah, absolutely. But there are also, there are some techniques that that are used around the world that would facilitate the transportation of the coconuts without actual road. So in addition to the road, so there's ways to go around it. But of course, road is a necessity. Another necessity, I think we have grown used to in our agricultural culture. We've grown used to thinking that coconuts does not need irrigation. I think we should take that out of our minds. I think if we want to have a thriving coconut industry, we need to, when we think of establishing a coconut plot, we need to consider irrigation. I think coconuts need, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, coconuts need ideally 46 gallons of water a day, a coconut tree, an adult coconut tree. Now, if you have a 3, 4, 5 months kawem, where them 46 gallons coming from? So if you want healthy coconuts that will produce for you nice and, you want a 12, 15, 20 coconut cluster, you need irrigation. Or let's say irrigation, you should consider irrigation. That should be part of your calculation. From my own experience, I do not have irrigation in all of my coconut plot, but there's one particular area I have irrigation, and there's a huge difference, night and day. The quality of nuts, the consistent size of nuts, the number of nuts in a cluster consistently. And the only difference is I have irrigation in that area. So I think that's very, very important. For some reason, we don't think of irrigation in coconut, but we should. We should add that in our discussion We would not just plant coconut and then pray for rain. If we want to move the coconut industry forward, that has to be part of the calculation. If we want to be on top of our game, if we want to maximize production, we have to consider irrigation. Yeah, I want to come back to the opportunities. And again, you cannot overemphasize that. I have some selected trees that give me about 16, 18 nuts per cluster. And each nut gives me between 500 and 750 mils per nut. That is 500 milliliters. So if one nut, you get the full one bottle with one nut, and some nuts a little more. In the areas where I have irrigation, I always get more than 500 mils for every coconut. Big difference. Right now, if you have to think of, so when I calculate coconut production, when I'm planning to plant, let's say I'm going to plant another 100, I always use the number 10. So 10 nuts per month per tree. But think about that. And I get 15, 18. There's one variety that I just started harvesting from. I get 27, 28 from those. But let's say 10 as an average. 100 coconut trees, 10 nuts per tree per month. Multiply that by whatever your retail price or wholesale price. That's for you to calculate. Whether you using the Antigua price or, but you plant 500 trees and you're good. Or if you want to make a bigger contribution, you look for 100 acres like me. What I'm saying is a very, very lucrative business. And that's from a farmer's perspective. The challenges are there, but it's insanely lucrative. I don't even understand how we're still begging people to plant coconut. Like, I literally don't understand that. Like, you run the numbers and, you ask, but what is wrong? So that's from my perspective. Any other questions? No. Oh, okay.
Thanks to Mr. Bruni for his first-hand farmer perspective. I think he spoke very practically. If I were listening from a news perspective, I have quite a few sound bites there when he spoke about the insane, how insanely lucrative the industry is. I think that's some of the things we need to hear, as well as when he spoke about the major challenge being labor. It seems to be something dogging the industry that we certainly need to address, PS, and I think we're on that. So thank you so much for your insight, Mr. Bruni. Very well done. We will hear now from another processor, Kamisha Dominic, and we now invite her to share with us.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sure protocol has been established, but I can't begin speaking without recognizing the presence of the PS and also, well, I was eyeing him, the Director of Trade, but he seems to have stepped out, and also National Youth Council, Division of Agriculture, Dominica Bureau of Standards, and the State College. I'd like to thank my employer for allowing me time to be here today, because this is a very important conversation, timely. And as I stand here, the little decor in me, the decorator in me is saying that, where are the palm trees? Not the palm trees, but the coconut leaf palm to decorate this space. Where is the green coconut on the table? Where is the dry coconut on the table? Where is the yellow coconut on the table? And this is our subject for today. So the truth of the matter is we are at the stage of reigniting the passion for the coconut industry. I had the privilege to travel to Grenada from the 12th of June for 4 days under the Alliance for Coconut, Alliances for Action for the Coconut Industry in the Caribbean. And Shanita from the ITC is here. And one of the speakers said something very brilliant that stayed with me. And he said, in every commercial advertising the Caribbean, there is no way you will not see a coconut tree. You must see a coconut tree. A coconut tree is the signature of vacation, the signature of Caribbean. And it's very interesting that the coconut tree is represented on our national flag. Why? Because the coconut industry was thriving once upon a time in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Okay, so that's what I like to say before I start. So that's my official start. So my name is Kamisha Dominique, and I operate a micro business. It hasn't even gotten to the stage of small because I still operate from my kitchen, but with the standards and everything else in place. And the name is Will Dominique, just to represent my namesake Dominique, and Will stands for oil. So not only I make coconut oil, but I also make extra virgin cold pressed moringa seed oil. And I had one production of castor oil, but it's too much. I can't continue with castor oil. So I'm sticking with coconut and moringa oil, because the coconut by itself gives you so many products that you could just focus on coconut only, right? So in the Indian territories, they consider coconut to be the tree of life. And coconut is indeed like the tree of life, because from the coconut you can get shelter from the leaves, from the coconut when you cut it down after it has reached maturity, you can get furniture. Like if you go to the beach in Mero, majority of the furniture on the beach is the coconut stem. Keeping it real, exactly. So that is that. And liquid gold is something, a term we use, like liquid gold. But coconut is indeed liquid gold, like for real, it is liquid gold. Liquid gold in the water, liquid gold in the different grades of oil, liquid gold in the milk. So you have a tree giving you shelter, you have a tree giving you furniture, you have a tree giving you water, milk, oil. And it's interesting to note that the industry is being reignited at this point. So that's the beauty of the coconut. I love working with the coconut. I absolutely love it. But what I'm producing is coconut oil. So how I started after Hurricane Maria, at a time when jobs were scarce, because I was working for a television station, and you know, television stations operate with advertising. And you know, I found myself in a position like, what am I going to do? I have rent to pay, I have things to do. And it dawned on me that I should go into making coconut oil. I called my mother and she's like, Kamisha, Hurricane Maria just passed. Where are you going to get coconuts? I'm like, Mommy, that is what I want to do. That's what I am going to do, and I will find a way. So as Dion said in my intro, in the early stages, I was indeed forced to travel to St. Lucia. Now that brings me to a point of price. In St. Lucia at the time, I'm not sure if coconuts, the price has increased, but it was 75 cents for one coconut. In Dominica, after Hurricane Maria, the price $5 per coconut. So the money I had, still doing like, you know, still doing some side jobs with radio. When I calculated it, buying coconuts in St. Lucia, paying for my ticket, everything, I still had $300 left over with the money I had to do my business, as opposed to using that money to buy coconuts. It wasn't even enough to buy coconuts in Dominica to produce. And we're still at that stage. Just that I have an 8 to 4 and I can supplement. I can supplement in purchasing. But if you have to really look at it, the value of a bottle of coconut oil in terms of just getting 750 ml is almost 200 EC dollars just to produce that one bottle of coconut oil. That's the value. But we have to sell it at what is the market value of that coconut oil. Okay, so from the coconut, not only coconut oil, when I produce the coconut, from my work experience, having worked with Dominica Consumer Protection Association, we had a project, solid waste management project. It was instilled in me to take heed when it comes to sustainable development goals. So in my production, one of the goals that I pay attention to is Sustainable Development Goal 12, which speaks to responsible consumption and production. So in breaking the coconut, I don't just go ham on breaking the coconut. There is special care taken when I'm breaking that coconut shell. So as you can see on the table, it's not part of the original decor. I brought it here. It looks very pretty, but it's not part of the original decor. It's just to show what can be done with a coconut shell bowl. And interestingly, that this plant is called the money plant. It's just a little encouragement. So I grow the money plant in the coconut shell bowl. All right? So this is one of the things that can be done. So the half of the coconut, which naturally has the 3 holes where the nut is going to grow from, this half is used for coconut planter. The other half, with the assistance of a craft person in the village of St. Joseph, I am able to craft these bowls you see here, which I'm using for like a stand for my coconut oil. And the coconuts, which I was totally unable to break for them to come out half, these shells go into creating one of the value-added products that was mentioned earlier, which is at the top, very high value premium product, is the coconut shell activated carbon. If I have to tell you about it, my time will run out. And I actually have 2 more minutes. All right, so that is that from the value-added products when it comes to the coconut itself. So there's a lot of education which needs to be done as it relates to coconut, especially when it comes to the grades of coconut oil. Because some people do not understand the grades. You have virgin coconut oil, extra virgin coconut oil, and some people, once the coconut is yellowish, it is just coconut oil. What is the grade? This is virgin coconut oil because it came from the milk, and the extra virgin coconut oil has no heat was used in the process. So there are 2 grades of extra virgin coconut oil. You can get it by fermentation or extraction cold press. So right here I brought with me the extra virgin cold press coconut oil, and this oil came from coconuts which naturally made copra. So the coconut didn't go in the sun. I had the coconuts there, they turned copra, the oil was beautiful, it was shining from I could just look at the coconut and see the oil. And I decided to use an equipment I have to press it. Okay, so let me go to the challenges quick. So that is one of my products, the extra virgin. I also make the virgin. So we need to understand the grades of coconut oil. There's extra virgin. The grades you should stay away from in terms of health reasons is refined and hydrogenated. Anything hydrogenated, please stay away from it. Anything refined, take your chances. Okay? All right, so yes, challenges. So shipping. So for example, one customer is interested in buying my product. My product is online with a particular local business place. And that this person is in the UK. And this person said to me, the cost of shipping is more than your product. I cannot buy because the cost of shipping is more than your actual product. So I'm like, well, you have to come to Creole Festival. You have to find a way to come to Dominica, and then you'll get it from me. So that's one of the challenges. The other challenge, before I go to that, a lot of times we like to bring down. Yeah? So let us start by giving a big applause to these people here who are trying to reignite the passion for coconut. Let's clap for them. So we have the ministry, we have Dominica Bureau of Standards, which basically holds your hand in telling you from your labels, from idea to the market. Then you have Dexia. It's really a hand holding. But there's a lot of red tape. It's like there's lack of faith in the agro-processor. It's like we want to help you cross the river, but at the same time, if you slide on the stone, that's your business. So there's a lack of faith in us. Because there are resources in place. Grants, loans, everything. Your loan you have to pay back, so you have to watch your budgeting. Grants, you can get to that stage. They have a lot in place to help us. But we have our challenges. The machinery is very expensive. For example, I have a barrel of coconut shells, 2 barrels of coconut shells for activated charcoal. I have to go through the traditional process of getting to the 100% activated carbon. And if I had machinery, or if there was little red tape, it would be easier for me to get the funding and all of that. So everybody can agree we have challenges. We always have challenges when it comes to funding. But just make it a little easier first. Help us across the river, and if we slide, look first and hold our hand so we can cross and get to the other side. Okay? For the future for coconuts is extremely bright, as has been well established here today already. And creating employment. I mean, just look at on the table. You have the crafts people. I cannot do that craft work. I had to pay somebody to do the crafts for me. That is just one. You have the value-added products. You have the planters. You have the utensils. That is a bowl which you can actually use to eat your cereal or your nice fruit, rainbow-colored fruit bowl. It is workable. We can actually use it. So I think my time has come to an end. There's a lot more I'd like to say. So if you have questions, the questions can probably bring out everything else I may have to say. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dominic. We heard your challenges with access to machinery, as well as the red tape that you encounter, but we also heard the enthusiasm you have for the potential that lies with the industry. So we wish you the very best as you develop your micro enterprise into small, medium, and then large. And I'm sure you'll have some questions for her after we've gone through our panelists. Our next panelist is Mr. Lloyd Pascal. He's the head of export promotion and development at Dexia, and he will speak to us on trade and exports aspect of the coconut sector, as well as value-added opportunities. Mr. Pascal.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And let me say good morning to everybody. I do recognize everyone in the audience, so I won't start by calling any names, lest I get into trouble here. So just to say that I'm very pleased and very happy to be a part of the panel discussion today. And I look forward to some great results from this. I am one who believes in results-oriented. And so I always try to put myself into things that will bring about results. And certainly with the coconut industry, we want to see some great results. We would like to see better results this time around. in terms of what we're doing for the sector. The prospects and outlook for the revitalization of the coconut industry in Dominica. There are great prospects, I must say, and a positive outlook for a revitalized coconut industry in Dominica. But we now have to turn this from just being a great statement to become our reality as an agriculture-based economy. Okay? So that's the very first thing I would like to say. That we have to turn this from just being a great statement to become our reality. And I think that's one of the things that we're looking at by just having this discussion, is to be able to get some ideas, get to hear from you, the public, and those who are in the room as well, to hear from you and to see how we can move this very important industry forward. We heard from the farmer earlier, we heard from the agro-processor earlier, and so we hear the cry, we hear the challenges and the concerns that some people have. For me, I understand trade to be the voluntary exchange of goods and services that takes place between economic actors. And trade has to benefit both parties, not just the producer, farmer in that case, for example, but also the buyer. So both people have to be engaged in that trade. And trade is meant to fuel economic growth, to support good jobs at home, to raise the living standards, and to help Dominicans provide for their families. If these basic elements of trade are non-existent, then the actors who are the farmers, exporters, and agro-processors, they'll all disappear. And the markets will become volatile. So we see that sometimes happening, where we try to get produce as an agency, Dexia, and we can't get it because farmers are reluctant to plant, because they got burnt before, and they're not willing to get burnt a second time. Trade in coconuts, fresh or dried, represents 0.091% of total trade. In 2021, the top exporters of coconuts, as we know, came from all of these Pacific countries, like Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Sri Lanka. All of these countries, they produce a whole lot of coconuts. And we cannot compare ourselves with these larger Asian Pacific countries when it comes to volumes traded. However, my concerns are based on how we make the best use of our resources to maximize our efforts at improving, one, our production. The current ITC project, as we know, will be doing some of that production, and someone will talk a little bit more about that later on. Number two, post-harvest best practices. How do we improve that? Three, utilization of the primary product to add value to our trade in coconuts. And this speaks to having the entire ecosystem developed to increase our benefits from the crop. And number four, market access. How do we improve market access and growth within the market? Not just market access, but how do we grow the markets that we have access to? Everything that I just mentioned is achievable with proper planning, quick implementation. Notice I said quick implementation, and enforcement in some way where necessary. And of course, money allocated and spent on these key areas. Prior to Hurricane Maria, we were beginning to realize